Takuto was a terminally ill boy who spent the majority of his time playing a civilization-building strategy game called Eternal Nations. One day, as he was launching the game once more after achieving everything possible, he quietly passed away. He experienced the sensation of sinking into darkness, and when he opened his eyes, he discovered himself seated on a stone throne in the center of a forest. He couldn't comprehend what was happening, but then a familiar figure materialized before him. Takuto instantly recognized the woman as Atu, the sludge who had been his favorite character from the game Eternal Nations. Atu called Takuto her king, and he wondered if this was some sort of roleplay scenario he needed to participate in. However, Atu told him he didn't need to overthink it because she knew everything already. She knew his name as well as the fact that he was the pro among pros who had completed the game on nightmare difficulty with the most challenging civilization. Takuto was amazed to hear that she knew about him being a player and her being a character inside the game. And Atu told him that she remembered all their gaming sessions as well. She knew his playstyle as well as all the things he had said to her through the screen. Takuto was incredibly happy upon realizing that he could talk to his favorite character face to face, and Atu told him that she was even happier. He then asked her if this was heaven and if she had summoned him to this place. But Atu told him that she had been summoned to this place too. As for the location, she felt that it was like the world of Eternal Nations. She then quickly knelt before Takuto and held his hand, saying that since they were here together, it didn't matter what kind of place this was. She said that they should team up again and build a civilization just for the two of them. Takuto didn't even know what to say, as Atu pulled him down from his throne, telling him that they had conquered the world multiple times in the past, and they should consider this a chance for a brand new beginning. Takuto liked the idea and he asked Atu to serve him to form a glorious civilization, and she gladly agreed. She then pretended to be a badass which unofficially pledged her loyalty to him. But then both of them became embarrassed at those cringe-level dialogues. With that, Takuto told Atu that she already knew what the first thing they do at Minogra was. She affirmed, saying that they would become shut-ins and hide their existence from the rest of the world. The next thing that Takuto did was use his emergency skill to produce a giant-sized bug to scout the nearby area. Takuto and Atu discussed how it was one of their core rules to completely hide their presence from other players in the early game. And scouts like this were helpful to gather information without revealing themselves. Takuto then commanded the bug to gather information from the surroundings, and it immediately darted away to complete its mission. Atu was surprised because she hadn't expected things to go so smoothly in this new and unfamiliar world. And Takuto told her that he could share the vision of the bug just like in the game. He then said that he had spent half of his mana to create the scout, and now his best choice was to create a starting settlement for them. He wished that he had a bit more mana to create a fighter to defend them, but that wasn't possible right now. Atu became a bit depressed upon hearing this because she was really weak right now and she couldn't even protect herself, let alone Takuto. Anyway, Takuto kept scouting the area through the bug's eyes, and he said that there was nothing but forest here. Atu became sad because she couldn't help him right now, but he told her that her presence was good enough for him, and she became really happy upon hearing this. Just then, the bug came across a group of poor and tired dark elves. Atu said that this was good news for them because dark elves were a neutral species, though they inclined a bit towards the neutral evil side, and their kingdom was also neutral evil. However, this news worried Takuto, who began wondering if this was really the world of Eternal Nations. He began thinking that if there was another civilization nearby, his kingdom was most certainly going to be destroyed right now. But Atu told him that if they were in any kind of danger, they would flee away together. Takuto told her that she couldn't be more right. While they were doing their silly chants and celebrations, a group of dark elves suddenly arrived there. They were as shocked to see Takuto and Atu as they were shocked to see them, and Atu decided to put her life on the line if her master was in any sort of danger. It turned out the leader of the dark elves, Gia, was on a mission to find food for his people who were too tired and hungry to move. His assistant had told him that they should not be in this forest because legends say that something incredibly evil was sealed away in this place. But Gia had told her that he couldn't back down just because of that, because his people needed him. Just as he was thinking that, he suddenly came face to face with Atu and Takuto, who seemed to him like the avatar of evil. He was struck with fear as he could only see a black silhouette in place of Takuto. He thought that if he made a mistake here, his entire clan could be wiped out. So, he quickly knelt before Takuto and introduced himself. His followers did the same, and then Gia apologized to Takuto for trespassing in his territory. Atu suddenly started acting like a gangster and said that it was good to see that they knew their place. She asked him why the Dark Elves had come here, and Gia began his sob story to get some sympathy. However, Atu became bored and told him to get to the point quickly, scaring him. He immediately told her that his clan had been banished by the council and they were being persecuted even now. Suddenly, Takuto asked him if they had faced great difficulty, and Gia froze from panic. However, when Atu told him to answer the king's question, he explained that their clan had been punished unjustly and they were forced to enter these cursed lands to stay safe. However, their food supply had ended a week ago, and now his people were starving because they hadn't been able to find any source of food here. Gia started thinking about the hardships his clan had faced when all they wanted was to live peacefully. He wondered if Takuto would be cruel to them too. But to his surprise, Takuto threw some apples at him, telling him that he should try them out because they were delicious. Gia had never seen apples before, and he was doubtful about them. But his followers didn't have his patience, and they began gobbling down the apples while exclaiming how sweet they were. Takuto suddenly created some pears too, and Gia was left completely stunned. Atu asked him why he was not eating the fruits that her master had so gracefully given him, and the Dark Elf immediately bowed before Takuto, saying that there were more people in his tribe who were starving. He wanted to feed them, especially the children, before himself, and Takuto took pity on him. He started summoning a huge amount of food, much to Atu's horror and Gia's shock. Dark elves like him had always been discriminated against because people believed they belonged to the dark side, and no one had ever tried to help them before. Now he asked Takuto who exactly he was, but he just told him to take the food to his people. Gia and his followers soon returned to their camp with the food, and everyone finally got to eat until they were full. Gia, however, refused to reveal how he had gotten the food to other elves. But at night, while he was sitting alone by the campsite, the clan elder arrived there. He remarked that the fruits he had brought earlier were different from anything he had seen in his long life, and they were tastier than any other fruit. He asked Gia where he had gotten those fruits from, and he told the elder about his meeting with the legendary evil being. The elder was shocked because Gia had met the king of Ruin who was mentioned in ancient books. He said that according to those books, when the world had become too full, the king of Ruin would appear and destroy the world so it could have a fresh start. Gia felt like Takuto met the description of the king of Ruin. But truth be told, he couldn't even understand a single thing that Takuto had said, and he had only acted on hints that he got from Atu's behavior. The elder wasn't sure about that part yet, but he asked Gia if he had given Takuto anything in return for the food. He said that he hadn't given anything in return, and the elder said that no evil being would show mercy to someone without getting something in return. Gia, however, believed that Takuto was a merciful being who had taken pity on his people's suffering, and that angered the elder. He asked Gia how he could talk about an evil being with such respect. But after a bit of debate, he realized that Gia had done his best and secured food for his people. After that, Elder Molter declared that he would negotiate with the Dark King as the senior most dark elf, and hopefully their clan would be able to get the peaceful life they had always dreamed of. On the other hand, Atu scolded Takuto for using his mana to create food for the elves when he didn't have enough for it. But the moment he told her not to be upset at him because he needed her, she started acting lovesick again. The next day, Gia got ready to visit Takuto again, and Elder Molter asked him if he was ready to face the king. He believed that since they had already accepted charity from the Dark King, they must be ready to pay any price he asked in return. Gia objected, saying that Takuto had never said anything like that. But Molter replied that it was just the way of nature for evil beings to ask for compensation in exchange for the good deeds they do. However, he agreed that they needed to keep relying on Takuto to survive because no place else was safe for them. The two of them decided to go to Takuto together, unaware that his insect scout had been keeping an eye on them the whole time. Takuto immediately called the bug back to report to him, and when he learned that the elves were coming, he just wished that they would take the rest of the food he had prepared for them yesterday and leave quietly. He got nervous as he explained that he gets nervous and can't communicate properly, so he didn't know if he could negotiate with the Dark Elves. Atu told him that she would do it for him, and it would also show the Dark Elves that her king didn't even talk to the likes of them. Soon after that, Molter and Gia arrived there, and the old elf greeted Takuto with some elaborate salutation, thanking him for providing food to his people. He then asked if he could know the name of the person who had helped them, and upon receiving Takuto's permission, Atu shared his name, declaring him as the King of Ruin. Both the Dark Elves were shocked to have their fears confirmed. And then Atu told them to take the food and leave because it wouldn't last long anyway. However, Molter said that he wanted to repay Takuto for the kindness he had shown them and asked what they could offer him in return. Atu simply told them that they wouldn't have anything that would be able to satisfy her king anyway. She asked the elves if they really had anything they even considered valuable. And Molter hesitated because there was nothing like that with them anymore. Atu gave him a death stare upon seeing him hesitate and asked if he was plotting something. Molter started panicking, and Takuto realized that the negotiation was going very badly. Now he suddenly called Atu to discuss their approach, and she became mad because Takuto was planning to be too lenient. She told him that these two losers didn't even know how to negotiate, and at this rate, they would only become obstacles in his path. She suggested killing them all, but Takuto asked her to stop turning into a certain Austrian painter. He said that the elves just wanted to coexist peacefully with him, and they wanted to pay him back for the same reason. He suggested that they ask them to pay in a way they could rather than giving them food for free. Atu couldn't argue with that, and she told the elves that her king had decided to accept their offerings. Upon seeing the relief on Molter's face, both Takuto and Atu realized that he had been so nervous because he thought of Takuto as the typical evil being. Atu rebuked him for that, but then she became confused about what to ask in return for the food. Suddenly, Takuto got an idea, and he told her to ask the elves about the outside world. Molter was really glad to hear this, and he swore to tell Takuto everything he had seen and heard in the outside world in detail. Atu said that once he had done that, he was supposed to leave the forest with his tribe immediately, and that shocked both Gia and Molter. They said that they would like to keep living in the forest under Takuto's mercy, but Atu told them to stop being greedy if they wanted to live. Gia tried to argue, but Molter shut him up, saying that they needed to obey the command of the king. They began to leave, but now Takuto felt bad for casting them out. He suddenly got an idea and told Molter and Gia to become his citizens. Both of them were shocked to hear this, but not as much as Atu, who asked Takuto what the hell he was doing. He reminded her about the refugee system in the game, which allowed them to take in different species as their citizens. He remarked that since Dark Elves were a neutral species, they would easily adapt to the evil attribute of their kingdom, and then they could coexist with the other species living in their kingdom. Atu was still doubtful because species with evil alignment tended to have conflicts among each other. But Takuto reminded her that their main species called homunculi looked like humans that were taken apart and put back together poorly, and they couldn't spend all their time with them. Atu immediately agreed with him as soon as the creepy image of the homunculi popped up in her mind. She turned to the two elves telling them that Takuto planned to build a kingdom here soon, and he was ready to accept them as his citizens if they pledged to serve him. Molter was taken aback at this, and he asked the two what would happen if they chose to become his citizens, and she made it clear that they would become evil beings, but she told them that it was more fun than they thought to be evil. Soon after that, Takuto and Atu headed to the settlement of the Dark Elves where everyone was ready to welcome him. Everyone was terrified of him, and some of the weaker ones fainted just upon seeing one glimpse of him. Takuto took his throne with Atu by his side, who told the Dark Elves that now they were going to become the citizens of their kingdom, Minogra. She asked Takuto one final time if he was sure about it. And just as he gave his permission, the elves were accepted into his kingdom, and Atu congratulated them, because now their survival and safety was guaranteed by their new king. Gia wondered if that was all because he didn't feel any different even though he should have become an evil being. Suddenly, he regretted his words as intense hatred erupted inside him and the other elves. They thought about the people who had hurt and persecuted their kind and were filled with the desire to get revenge, and the other normal elves with them were worried about them. Seeing everyone suffering, Takuto asked them if they were fine, and Gia was moved to tears upon realizing that someone cared for him and his people now. The Dark Elves started cheering for Takuto with tears in their eyes, and he was somewhat overwhelmed by this. A few days later, Takuto received a map of the continent from Molter, and he crashed out just as he saw it. Atu asked him what was wrong, and he told her to look at the map and see what a terrible starting position they had. They were on a continent where two huge and powerful civilizations were already present. One of them was the Holy Kingdom of Qualia, a nation of humans who worshipped the god Arlos, and they were a hardcore good alignment civilization. On the other hand, there was Elnan, the alliance of elementals where elves who worshipped nature lived. They were also aligned to the good side, and Atu panicked upon realizing that if they found their kingdom, they would quickly erase them. She crashed out along with Takuto, but then he calmed down, saying that as long as they were not discovered, they could become stronger. He said that in the game, their main species, homunculi, were really dumb, so they couldn't do much research. But now that they had dark elves, things should be better on that end. Soon after that, the dark elves paid him a visit, and this time, Gia had brought along his assistant Emily with him. He told Takuto that Emily was a smart nerd who knew a lot of stuff about other kingdoms, so she would definitely help him out more than them. Atu told them that the king was pleased with their dedication and then declared that they were going to take up important jobs from now onwards because it was what Takuto wanted. First, she assigned Molter the duty to look over the internal affairs of the kingdom and said that she had high hopes from him because she had learned that he knew magic as well. Next, she made Gia the head warrior of Minogra and told him to build up a strong army so that they could defend themselves. And he got hyped up saying that he would kill all their enemies and display their heads as trophies. But Takuto was already grossed out. He said that war was barbaric, and Atu told the confused Gia that their king preferred peace. So he should keep that in mind. This confused the elf warrior even further as he wondered why the king of Ruin would love peace. Well, Molter taunted Gia and then immediately got up saying that unlike Gia who only had muscles instead of brain, he would be more helpful. Gia took this as a challenge, and he told Takuto that he was young and strong so he could work more without rest, and she thought they were workaholics. She asked Takuto if they should give them a mission to collect resources, and he suggested that they should order them to beautify the terrain and create some houses. Atu immediately conveyed this to Molter, telling him to gather enough timber to build homes while leaving the forest mostly intact. Molter said that he would immediately get to it because dark elves were forest dwellers originally. Takuto then told them to reforest the parts they cut out, and this confused the elves because they hadn't heard the term. Takuto realized that their civilization might not be as advanced as to understand reforesting. So he asked them if they knew about military magic or the 6 major elements. Molter said that he only knew about the 4 major elements, and Emily said that she had never heard of any country using military magic. Takuto and Atu realized that this world was much more primitive than they had thought. But it was actually a good thing because once they progressed their magic technology, they could quickly overtake other nations. Atu then explained that reforesting meant growing new trees in place of the ones they cut off. And the Dark Elves said that they did that too, but they couldn't use magic to grow them quickly. Atu said that reforesting used the 6 major elements to quickly grow the tree, and she suddenly gave the credit for this discovery to Takuto, even though it was a big fat lie. She kept praising Takuto, saying that he had created the unique fruits they ate earlier and how grapes were her favorite. Emily agreed with Atu and said that she had tried planting the grape seeds and some plants had already sprouted. This came as surprising news to Takuto, who hadn't thought it would be possible to grow anything here. However, he quickly realized that he could create the fruits from Earth here with magic, which meant he might be able to create other things. He tested his theory out by creating a coin and realized that he could create gunpowder and other science stuff. In that way, he could advance his civilization much faster than other kingdoms. Meanwhile, in the Holy Kingdom of Qualia, things were starting to stir up as well. Saint Selena was leading a group of knights to the foothills covered with snow to deal with some monsters that were a threat to the villages nearby. As soon as she saw the goblins running towards her, she pointed her staff at them, turning them into ash with her holy flame. The holy flame vanished into the clouds after destroying the monsters, and as sunlight fell on the scorched ground, flowers sprouted there. The knight captain told his men that Selena's ability burned evil-natured monsters and created a flower bed in their place, and she was the reason they had a friendly relationship with the elves. After that, Selena told the cardinal that he should send paladins to the south instead because she had recently had an omen about something terrible happening in the cursed forest. The cardinal refused, saying that the cursed forest lay at the farthest end of the continent, and he needed permission from higher-ups to deploy paladins there. Selena threatened to go there herself if he couldn't send anyone. And though the cardinal tried to fight back, he backed down and promised to send the soldiers he could personally mobilize. At the same time, Takuto and Atu were busy with developing their territory, starting with building some houses for the Dark Elves. A temporary throne room had already been built around Takuto's throne, and he was eager to hold meetings and conferences with the important citizens of his kingdom. Just then, Molter, Gia, and Emily arrived there, and Atu told them that they should immediately start their first council meeting. However, Emily had a gift for Takuto before the meeting, and it was an outfit that made him look like a king. He was glad to receive the outfit because his clothes were getting dirty, and he thanked the elves for that. However, the elves saw no change in his appearance, but they trusted Atu when she told them that Takuto looked great in the outfit they had prepared. With that out of the way, she started the council meeting, but Takuto was too busy admiring himself. Atu decided to continue the meeting without him and consult him whenever they needed any input, and Takuto was completely fine with that suggestion. As the meeting started, Molter asked Atu what kind of buildings they should make first. She told him that they should start with food production facilities and then pulled out a creepy-looking plant, which was going to be their main source of food for now. The elves were grossed out upon seeing the plant and asked Atu to explain what exactly it was. She told them that it was the flesh plant which was unique to their civilization. She explained that the plant could produce meat which tasted like human flesh, and it was quite nutritious. The elves were taken aback upon hearing that, and they said that they didn't really eat humans. But Atu told them that the flesh plant was just for the starting phase, and soon they would have other types of foods available to them. She then said that they must also create storehouses and management sheds along with the farms, and Emily decided to take up that job. After that, Atu moved on to the next item on her agenda, which was research, because acquiring advanced technology was especially important for small nations like theirs. Molter asked her what sort of technology they should focus on, and she told him that they would research magic technology. Takuto was really excited to see that happen, and Molter said that as a mage he would do his best to impress him. He then asked Atu exactly what kind of magic technology he should research, and she told him about military magic. She explained that standard attack magic could only target a handful of people at a time, but advanced military magic could destroy entire cities and even change the terrain to their advantage. Atu told him to gather the elves talented in magic and start working on the research immediately. And Molter was hyped to create magic spells that didn't yet exist in this world. Next up, Atu moved to the topic of their military strategy, and Gia got excited because it was his turn now. However, Takuto immediately told him that they were not going to invest too heavily in the army right now. Atu added that armies were expensive to maintain, but they didn't produce anything in return in times of peace. Gia argued that they didn't have enough strength to protect their king currently, and thus they should pay more attention to their military. Molter also added that both he and Gia had bounties on their heads as the leaders of Dark Elves, and their enemies might attack the kingdom. Takuto understood their concerns and decided to create a hero to defend them instead. Atu agreed, saying that creating a hero was expensive, but they needed no maintenance, so they were perfect for their current needs. The elves didn't know what a hero was, and Atu told them that heroes were incredibly strong beings who served directly under the king. There were conditions to summon different heroes, but she was confident that they could summon the first one quite soon, and Takuto was excited for that. He thought about how they needed mana to do most things in this world, and a kingdom could only collect mana from its people. The happier the people were, the more mana they could collect, and Takuto was determined to make his kingdom the happiest place on this planet. Meanwhile, in the Holy Kingdom of Qualia, a junior paladin named Lonius had been selected as a part of the investigation team to be sent to the Cursed Forest. A senior paladin, Vertil, was also with him, and his favorite way to kill time was to annoy Lonius, who was too straight-laced and formal. Vertil complained that they were sending an awfully small investigation team that involved just 2 paladins and some mercenaries. He said that the church should pay more attention to Selena's prophecy, and Lonius agreed. But he knew that they couldn't guess what the higher-ups were thinking. He knew that if they succeeded, they would be rewarded greatly, but if they failed, all the blame would most definitely fall on his head. Back in Minogra, Takuto inspected the progress of his civilization. He felt nostalgic because he had seen the starting phase of his civilization thousands of times on a screen until now. But this time, he was seeing it up close. Emily gave him a tour, telling him that the Dark Elves specialized in building houses on trees. But the pace of building houses was slow right now because they were focusing on the flesh trees. The flesh trees were growing well though, and the management and storage facilities had also been built. Emily then said that they had found a freshwater spring nearby, and they were trying to see if they could draw water from it. As for the magic research, Molter and other mages were working hard in the newly formed research building. Takuto was glad to hear all that, and even more so to learn that the elves were taking initiatives like finding water sources. He was really happy that the elves who had looked exhausted when they first came here now looked happy. And when he told that to Emily, she started crying tears of joy. Takuto freaked out upon seeing her break down, but Emily soon calmed down and resumed the tour. She showed Takuto and Atu to the flesh tree farm and said that thanks to the tools that Takuto had produced, they could expect the first harvest soon. Next, she took them to the source of water the elves had found, but noticed that the vibe around the place was completely different this time. The water had turned dark as well, and Emily was disappointed because she thought that they couldn't use it anymore. Before Atu could explain why she was wrong, Molter and Gia also arrived there to see the water source. They agreed with Emily that the water didn't seem usable anymore, but then Atu took a sip, telling them that it was completely safe to drink. She then explained that this place looked dark and gloomy now because it had become a part of Minogra thanks to a feature called the Cursed Terrain. Takuto asked the elves to take a deep breath, and they suddenly felt their minds clearing up and their bodies filling with energy. Atu explained that Cursed Terrain gave advantage to creatures with evil alignment and imposed penalties on neutral and good alignment beings. Since the Dark Elves were part of Minogra, they were evil beings now, and thus this water was completely safe for them. Gia verified that by drinking the water, and then Atu said that soon the entire forest would be a part of the Cursed Terrain. However, Takuto thought that it could be a little problematic because the Cursed Terrain stood out too much. Molter agreed, saying that once the entire forest became this dark, their enemies could easily spot them. Gia once again suggested creating an army, but both Atu and Takuto assured him that they were going to summon a hero. Molter said that he was still not clear about what a hero was, and Atu decided to teach him through an example. She suddenly summoned dark tentacles from her back, slashing down nearby trees effortlessly before revealing that she was a hero herself. And even though she had only 1% of her full power, she could still defeat entire armies. Takuto boasted to the surprised elves that heroes were really awesome, and they kept growing stronger with time, even if they didn't do anything. However, he quickly changed the topic and told Atu that there was no need to chop down the trees to show her power and told her to clean up the mess later. The elves, on the other hand, were truly amazed by what they had just seen, and they said that Takuto was really a great being for having such powerful subordinates. They decided to create a grand palace suitable for him, and Takuto said that he didn't need it right now. However, the elves refused to let their king stay in similar houses like them. And Atu also told Takuto that creating a palace would make the people happier, so they should let them do it. Takuto decided to give them his permission, saying that he wanted a flying fortress someday, but for now, he would be satisfied with a normal palace, too. At the same time, the investigation group led by Lonius and Vertil had started traveling to the cursed forests in the south. Vertil was still not satisfied by the size of their group, and Lonius replied that this was the best they could get as most of their forces were dealing with the northern disturbances. Evil alignment species had suddenly appeared in the north, attacking and looting cities, and thus most of their empire's firepower had been diverted to deal with them. The mercenaries suddenly said the guys who went north were going to have a rough time. They felt lucky that they weren't ordered to take up that job because even though the pay was really good, there was a witch involved in the case, and they didn't want to do anything with that. Lonius was curious about the witch, and at night, he asked the mercenary named Bargo about it. Bargo said that there were rumors that the entire problem in the north was caused by a witch. But Lonius refused to believe that. He said that a single person couldn't be responsible for such a huge number of monsters, and Bargo agreed. He said that it must be the work of a cult, but Vertil told him to shut up before he jinxed all of them. Lonius suddenly got pissed at Vertil because he was drunk. He lectured him that they weren't allowed to drink since they served the god, but Virgil was ready to debate with him on the religious text. He then suddenly ignored him and started flirting with the waitress who brought him more alcohol. Vargo then asked Lonius why 2 paladins were being sent so far south. He feared that it must be because of another witch, and if that was the case, he wanted to take his boys and get out before things got dangerous. Lonius said he didn't know, but then Virgil said that he had already collected some information from the waitress about what was going on. A bunch of dark elves had recently fled to the cursed forests, and the higher-ups probably just wanted to deal with them. Vargo was relieved upon hearing that, and he agreed that they should deal with the dark elves quickly because they were really skilled at assassinations and curses. Lonius also believed that if they left the dark elves unchecked, they would soon become a threat. But Virgil told him to chill out a bit. He said that this was just a recon mission, and if things were about to get violent, they would run instead of fighting. However, Lonius was too stuck up on the idea of defeating evil wherever they saw it, and he said that they could not run away from their duty as paladins. Virgil told him to stop chasing glory and fight only when the situation demanded it instead of jumping at every chance to risk his life. He reminded him that he had a family at home, and so did everyone else who was on this mission, and they should be more careful about their decisions. At the same time in Minogra, the first batch of harvest from the flesh trees was ready and placed in the center of a huge altar. Takuto was standing in front of the harvest with all the dark elves watching him, eagerly wondering what was going to happen now. Takuto started pouring his mana into the pile of fruits, and suddenly it transformed into a giant bug. The elves couldn't believe that Takuto had created life from just a bunch of fruits, and the two started praising him, saying that this wasn't even 1% of his true abilities. She told the elves that he would grow even stronger and would do more miracles with their devotion to him, and they started cheering for him. Later, Takuto returned to his throne, and he was relieved that he had been able to produce a bug monster in exchange for food. It was one of the features of the game, but he still didn't understand how exactly that worked out in this world. Budetsu told him that they didn't need to think much about it since they had established a way to produce more creatures to serve their kingdom. She then told Takuto that it was time to move on to the next step, and he agreed, saying that he would summon a hero as soon as they had gathered enough mana. Atu excitedly asked him who he planned to summon, and he replied that he wanted to summon Isla, the queen of insects. Atu thought that was a solid choice, and Takuto started talking about how Isla could buff all insect-type monsters and enable them to fight on front lines. She could also create larvae that could do menial labor, and thus she could support their kingdom on both fronts. Atu was glad that he had given it due thought, and Takuto replied that Isla was the only choice because the others were too unhinged. Atu agreed because she knew that the other heroes needed years of therapy, and Takuto told her that he hoped to summon them someday too, but not right now. On the other hand, Lonius and others had reached the Dark Continent, and they soon found their first opponent in the form of a hill giant. Lonius began commanding the mercenaries to support him, but then Virgil said there was no need for that, because he would handle the monster alone. He said that they didn't have any time to waste, and it would be faster if he took action and everyone else didn't get in his way. He swiftly approached the hill giant and pointed his sword towards it as the rest of his company watched. Virgil then enchanted his sword with holy power, and the hill giant waited for him to finish before attacking. Virgil effortlessly blocked his heavy club and then cut it clean using his holy sword. Next, he jumped up towards the monster and dealt multiple attacks to it, taking it down without giving it the chance to fight back. He returned to his troops after killing the giant, and Lonius started praising him, saying that the mission would be an easy one because they had him. Virgil, however, didn't think so, and that statement started worrying Lonius. Back in Minogra, Takuto was enjoying a burger when Atu told him to eat something healthier. He replied that he had only eaten healthy and boring food in the hospital, so he wanted to try new things now. He was also worried about her because she had been eating only salad for a few days now, and she told him that this kind of food suited her more. They talked about how construction had picked up pace now, and Takuto suddenly told Atu to summon Molter and others after they were done eating. He told her that the new scout bugs they had created had mapped the area around their base, and he planned to do something about the human settlement near them. He first asked Atu to confirm if the town near them was not a part of the Holy Kingdom of Qualia, and she was pretty sure that it was an independent territory with neutral alignment. Takuto was glad to hear that, because that meant they could negotiate with the town, and he hoped that nothing bad would happen during their interaction. He believed that they would be fine for now, and Atu joked that he would jinx them by saying that. Takuto laughed that nothing like that would happen. He got a message from a bug, just then showing him that an armed group was approaching the forest. He told Atu that they needed to send them away peacefully if that was possible, and if things went south they should get ready to fight. Meanwhile, the armed group was indeed Lonius and Vertil's party. And as they headed into the forest, Vertil told everyone to stop because he noticed someone approaching. Atu came out of the forest wearing black clothes that hid her face and features, and Vertil told her to identify herself. She claimed to be a dark elf who had taken refuge in the forest along with her clan because no other place was safe for them. Vertil understood that and told her to get aside because they needed to investigate the forest, and she replied that they should not go inside. Vertil realized something was wrong, but Lonius started yelling at Atu, asking her how she dared to disobey a command from God's servant. Vertil immediately lashed out at him, telling him not to interrupt him, and Lonius was pissed at him for scolding him on such a trivial matter. Vertil then resumed his conversation with Atu, telling her that they couldn't return just because she didn't want them to enter the forest. He asked her if there was something hidden in there, and she replied that it was just a bunch of elves who wanted to live in peace. She asked him why he was so obsessed with entering this godforsaken place. And after a bit of thinking, Vertil revealed that the saints had had a vision of something really evil hiding in this place, and he couldn't return without checking it with his own eyes. The mercenaries were shocked because they didn't know this, and Lonius asked him how he could reveal national secrets so casually. Vertil again yelled at him, saying that there were times when secrets needed to be told. This pissed off Lonius even more, because even a high paladin like Vertil didn't have authority to reveal divine prophecies without authorization from the higher-ups. Meanwhile, Vertil once again asked Atu to let them go into the forest to take a quick peek, but her attitude suddenly changed as she told them that they wouldn't find anything worth their time inside. She told them to return back immediately, and Lonius was angry that a dark elf dared to defy a prophecy from God. He could sense the air around them changing and decided that there was something really evil inside the forest that they needed to investigate. However, Vertil seemed to be willing to negotiate with her. He asked her to swear on God that there was no threat to the holy kingdom of Qualia inside the forest. And Atu swore on her God that they were the ones who were more afraid of Qualia. Vertil was satisfied with that, and he declared that they were retreating. Lonius couldn't believe this, and he pointed out that the woman was obviously hiding something. Vertil called him a faithless coward and told him to stop projecting his fears onto him. He said that they had found nothing, and that concluded their investigation. He began walking away with that, but Lonius was not going to let him make the decisions anymore. He told Vertil that he was revoking his authority as a high paladin for revealing a prophecy to the enemy and abandoning his duty. He told the mercenaries that they would head into the forest and confirm what evil was hiding there. And Bargo agreed to it because Lonius was the one signing their paychecks after all. Atu pleaded with them not to enter the forest, but Lonius ordered his men to capture her despite Vertil telling him not to do it. Atu just sighed that the negotiations had failed, and a few seconds later the mercenaries were all skewered on Atu's spikes like fresh kebabs, and Lonius was knocked out first, and he didn't even remember seeing all that. Vertil was the only person who witnessed everything and was still alive, and he panicked as he told Lonius that they were dealing with a witch. Atu quickly erased her disguise, saying that the conversation was going so peacefully, and it was a shame that things had turned out like this. The remaining mercenaries and Lonius were completely rattled by the scene in front of them, and Vertil told Bargo to send someone back to relay the message immediately. Bargo told him that all their messengers had been killed in the previous attack, and Atu sighed before laughing out loud that she was the calamity that they were looking for. She told them that they had finally found her and asked what they were going to do about it now. While everyone else was chickening out, Vertil yelled at them to grow a pair because they were too deep in trouble to run away now. He commanded his men to get ready to fight, saying that things shouldn't have turned out this way, and Atu fully agreed with him. She said that it was all the fault of that mindless loser with the bowl cut who thought that his faith was the most important thing in the world, and now he was going to pay the price for it. Vertil didn't want to stall her any longer, and he ordered the archers to attack first. However, blocking their arrows was child's play for Atu, who started letting her inner battle junkie show. Lonius nervously asked Vertil, "What even is a witch?" And he replied that he should have told this to everyone before the mission started. even though that would be breaking another rule. Witches were disaster-level monsters that were prophesied by the saints and officially denoted as the greatest threat to their kingdom by the top church officials. He told them that the disaster in the north was really because of a witch, and he was pretty sure that the woman in front of them was a witch, too. Atu had gotten bored of their talking by now, and she told them to attack, or she would start attacking them. Virgil commanded the mercenaries to fall back because only he and Lonius could fight her. He told Lonius to follow his lead, and they enchanted themselves with holy power as they rushed ahead. Atu attacked them with her tentacles, thinking they wouldn't be able to beat her, but holy power gave the paladins extra damage against evil attribute creatures, and they managed to slash through her tentacles. Atu was taken aback by this, but as she was busy monologuing, Virgil suddenly attacked her, and she lost another tentacle trying to protect herself. Lonius also took down another of her tentacles, and Virgil was confident that if they cut the remaining two, they could win. However, Atu was pissed now, and she suddenly took 2 mercenaries hostage, thinking that the paladins wouldn't be able to attack her now. However, Virgil was determined to put an end to her before she could become a threat to their kingdom. So he told Lonius that they would attack. Atu was not expecting this, and she was genuinely surprised when the paladins cut through the hostages along with her tentacles. They thought that they would win now. But Atu had been tricking them this entire time, and she decided it was time for the final act. She suddenly used a bunch of tentacles to turn Virgil into a human pincushion before Lonius could even see. Virgil told him to run away, but Atu pierced his head, instantly killing him. She flaunted that she didn't have just 6 tentacles, and she could summon as many as she wanted, which left Lonius even more aghast than he already was. He now realized his mistake and understood that they couldn't win. So, he ordered the mercenaries to run away and scatter in every direction because they needed just one person to reach back to the kingdom and tell them the news. Atu was pissed as the mercenaries ran away, but then she noticed that Lonius stayed back to give up his life in a desperate final attempt. He attacked her, but surprisingly Atu blocked his strike using the holy sword. He couldn't understand how that could happen, and Atu told him that she had stolen the ability to use holy power from Virgil along with all the techniques he had spent years mastering. She began pushing Lonius back while talking about his family because she had also stolen Virgil's memories and emotions. Lonius was shocked to hear this, and Atu told him that not only was Virgil really skilled, he also cared about everyone in his party until the last moment. She asked Lonius how it felt to realize that Virgil had to die because of his stupid ego, and he replied that his will still lived on. He said that the mercenaries would surely deliver the message home, when suddenly he heard screams coming from all directions. Atu scoffed, telling him that she had ordered the Dark Elves to not let even a single person escape, and Lonius lost his mind. He dashed at her in mad fury, but he couldn't do anything. Atu didn't kill him instantly either, and she hung him upside down as she filled his heart with fear and regret. She told him that if he had walked away like Virgil said, he would have returned to his family and lived a happy life with them. However, he had taken the wrong step, and now the future would be entirely different. She told Lonius that he would die here, and then she would hunt down his family and kill them. She would also kill all the people in all the towns and villages that his group had passed through for no reason, and he would be the one to take the blame for all of it. She told him that her king had told her that life was over once people started looking down on you, and to make sure that no one ever looked down on her. She would kill millions of people without any reason, and everyone would hate Lonius for that. His mind had been completely shattered now, and he begged Atu to stop, but she started acting cheerful, saying that he must have been a good religious person who loved his country and his family, but she hated self-righteous people like him. She told him to watch the massacre from his little seat in heaven, and Lonius once again begged her to stop. This time Atu simply tore him apart, ending her torture. Soon, she stood solemnly on the cliff's edge, thinking about her actions and the future, while Lonius's wedding ring lay in a puddle of his blood. Just then, Gia and some dark elves came there, telling Atu that they had taken care of all the mercenaries just like she had ordered them to. She told them that she was pleased with that and decided to head back, leaving the cleanup to them. However, before she went away, Gia had a question for her. He nervously asked her if she planned to follow through on everything she had just said to Lonius, and she appeared serious for a moment before returning to her normal cheerful self. She said that there was no way she was going to do all that because she was a pacifist and she was just bullying Lonius for the fun of it. She then decided to head to Takuto immediately because she had an urgent report for him. The report was the presence of another witch up in the north, and that was a new term for both of them, as there was no unit called witch in the game. Takuto realized that this wasn't exactly the game's world in that case, and the two affirmed, saying that though some things were the same as the game, the rest were quite different. However, she was confident that they could use the differences in their favor as well. Takuto didn't understand what she meant, so she told him that in this world, instead of just absorbing the abilities of the opponents she defeated, she could also absorb a part of their memory, which was definitely going to be quite useful. She excitedly told Takuto that she knew a bit about the condition of the Qualia kingdom already thanks to the 2 paladins she had killed. She said that currently Qualia was busy with the disturbance in the north, so they wouldn't pay much attention to them. But having their entire survey team wiped out would surely raise some flags. Takuto believed that even if Qualia took some action, they needed to be extremely cautious because they didn't know what they were dealing with. He wasn't worried about them, but he was quite curious about the witch in the north. He asked the 2 what she knew about the witch from the paladin's memories, and she replied that there was no clear information. The only thing she was sure of was that the witch had caused military-scale damage up north. She suddenly remembered that she also knew the witch's name. That was Irikino, the Slurping Witch. Takuto was curious now, and he thought that if just one witch could cause military-scale damage to a country, she might have come to this world from Earth just like them. He believed that she was on the same level as the hero units in the game, and said that they should be wary of the witch, considering her a potential enemy. A2 said that the witch was definitely an evil-aligned character like them, and they could try making contact with her. But Takuto shot down the idea, reminding her that it was rare for evil-aligned species to be on good terms with each other. A2 sighed, saying that things were looking troublesome, but Takuto told her to chill because the witch was far away from them. And even if she turned out to be their enemy, they had time to prepare for that. That brought them to the topic of summoning a hero. And Takuto said that they might need to reconsider which hero to summon. Earlier, he had thought of summoning the Bug Queen Isla, but now he wondered if it would be better to summon a more combat-oriented hero. Along with that, he felt that they needed to change their strategies about dealing with other countries around them. He told A2 that he had decided to be friends with the independent territory to their east because they would need allies in case Qualia came to fight with them. A2 thought that it would be hard even if the eastern country was neutral-aligned. But Takuto believed that as long as they had something valuable to offer, they would listen to them. He said that they should scout out the eastern country already while they were building up their strength. And A2 decided to carry forward his plan. Meanwhile, in another country, the beast folks were fighting against evil monsters that kept attacking their city. The attack was led by an old but powerful cowwoman wizard. And right as she finished taking down one wave of monsters, another wave arrived, making her wonder what was going on. Back in Minogra, A2 left to carry out Takuto's orders, but she stopped midway, acting nervous as she said that she might have gone a bit overboard with the paladins. She feared that it might offend Takuto, who truly liked peace. But he told her that it was fine and nothing she did could offend him. For a moment, even A2 saw the pitch-black king of ruin in Takuto's place. But then she started singing for him again, telling him that she would carry out his every order. Soon after that, Takuto's palace was finally complete, and he was really happy about it. A2 shared his joy, and they talked about how this was the monument to celebrate the start of their kingdom. Takuto said that one day he wanted an even bigger palace. Saying this reminded her that Takuto didn't have a personal attendant yet, and she suddenly felt guilty about it. She told Takuto that she would immediately find a maid that would attend to all his needs. And even when he told her that it wasn't needed, she insisted because it was a matter of pride for her. A2 asked him what kind of woman he wanted, and Takuto nervously replied that he wanted someone easy to talk to. He claimed that the Dark Elves really kept their distance from him, and that didn't help his dream of becoming a friendly king. A2 knew the true reason behind that was Takuto's form, but she didn't tell him about it. Instead, she assured him that she would take care of the matter with a brilliant idea, and Takuto had a feeling that it wouldn't end well. Soon Molter, Gia, and Emily arrived there as per A2's orders, and she told them to gather all the girls in the village and bring them here. Molter panicked upon hearing this and asked for reasons, and A2 told him that Takuto liked them young. She was proud of her plan because she thought that children could be trained to talk freely to Takuto. But on the other hand, Takuto hated that she was making him look like a predator. Anyway, he managed to get the situation under control by saying that he wanted children to serve him because they were free from the tainted perspective of adults. Everyone was glad to hear that Takuto wasn't going to turn their kingdom into something inappropriate. And Atu also covered for him, saying that the duties weren't so difficult, so kids should be able to manage them as well. Gia immediately replied that if that was the case, there was no need to call just the girls because boys could help out as well. Takuto jumped to answer this question like a true feminist, saying that he planned to train the kids to become future leaders and he wanted to promote women in leadership roles as well. So, it served two purposes at once. The elves totally believed him, and Emily was happy to learn that the king was a feminist, too. They praised him for his vision, and Takuto was glad to hear that he had managed everything well. Atu then told them to immediately send some children here, and Takuto hoped that now people would stop being awkward around him. Unfortunately, all the kids that were brought to see him started crying, and Atu ordered Molter to bring in the second batch. He informed her that these were all the kids in the village, and Atu called him a disgrace. Suddenly, Gia suggested to Molter that they could send the twins, but he shut down the idea. Atu opened it up again, and Molter revealed that there were two twin sisters in the village, and though they were smart, they had some special circumstances that made them unfit to serve the king. Atu told him that she would decide that for herself and commanded him to bring the twins here, but Gia replied that he had already summoned them. He tried flexing his foresight in front of the old geyser, but Atu told them that they could do their competition after this. Gia quickly brought the twins inside, and the younger sister introduced herself as Karina and her elder sister as Marina. Atu could tell at a single glance that the girls had suffered a lot and asked Karina about her scars. She replied that they were because of a disease, but they suited her appearance. Molter clarified that Karina had gotten a smallpox-like disease, and even though she was fully cured now, the scars remained. Then Atu asked about Marina, and she curtly replied that she had eaten her mom. Both Takuto and Atu were shocked to hear this, and they turned to Molter for an explanation, and he nervously revealed that the mother of the twins was a proud and noble woman who had sacrificed her life for their clan. They realized that the Dark Elves had to make a choice between starvation or cannibalism at some point, and that was how the twins lost their mother. Atu thought that it was a good thing that the girls were fearless, but she thought something was odd about them. Suddenly Marina walked up to Takuto and said that he was pure white. He was confused by her statement, but asked her if she wasn't afraid of him. Marina told him that she wasn't afraid and agreed to become his servant because she was confident that she could handle it. After that, Takuto asked Karina what she thought, and she replied that she needed to stay with her sister, so she would also become his servant. Takuto was glad to have them, and Atu declared that the twins had officially become the king's servants. However, once they left the room, Molter shared a word of caution with Takuto, telling him that the twins hadn't shed a single tear since their mother died. He said that they had closed off their hearts to everyone and asked Takuto to treat them with kindness and patience. Soon after that, the twins started serving Takuto, but Marina was clumsy and spilled water on him. Karina cleaned up her mess when Atu came there. She was disappointed upon seeing this, but told Takuto that they had to attend a meeting now. Once the meeting started, Atu decided to talk about the construction department first. Emily got up as she was the head of constructions and said that since the palace was completed now, their workforce was free to build another building. Takuto was pleased to hear that, and he ordered Emily to build a clinic because that would keep their people healthy, and it was also the cheapest one to build. Emily sat down as her part was done, but when Atu started the discussion on resource gathering, she had to stand up again because that was also her responsibility. She said that they were gathering food and other resources at a steady pace thanks to the special utensils and tools that Takuto had created for them. She believed that it was inefficient to make the king work for them. But Atu replied that since they just needed mana to create new items, they should work on building facilities that could help them gather a lot of mana quickly. She then moved on to the research department, and Molter stood up to present his report. He said that the military magic they were working on was complete, but only he could use it right now. He was going to teach it to other elves soon, but he didn't think that it would be used much in real life because their king was a pacifist. Atu agreed with him and said that one military magic was enough for now. She asked Molter to focus on the 6 great elements now because that would help them out the most in the long term. After that, she asked about the military status and Gia got up to deliver his report. 5 long-legged bugs had joined the army as scouts, and they were currently gathering information about the nation. He said that they hadn't gone out beyond the forest because it was a barren plain and there was no place to hide. Atu told him to deploy all the bugs to scout the area quickly because as long as she was defending them, they wouldn't have any problem. Gia was glad to hear that. And then Atu said that they had also decided on what hero they were going to summon next. Takuto declared that they would summon Isla, the queen of insects, and the dark elves suddenly went into alert mode. After that, they discussed other issues, and the meeting ended after a couple of very tiring and stressful hours. Once everything was sorted, Takuto headed back to his throne room with his servants, but Marina bumped into him, scattering the documents everywhere. Karina rushed to help her, but they ended up tearing a document instead. Takuto told them that it was fine and got back on his throne. When Marina approached him asking if he was a bad guy, he replied that he was an evil aligned character, which pretty much meant he was a bad guy. Marina asked him why he wasn't killing them in that case, and Takuto couldn't even understand her question fully. Karina elaborated saying that her sister wanted to know why a great king like him was showing such mercy even when they messed up all the time. Takuto tried passing it off as his habit, but the girls weren't satisfied, and he decided to tell them the difference between good people and bad people. He said that good people could only do good things, which meant they couldn't hurt others or steal from them. He asked the girls what bad people could do, and they replied that they could only do bad things. Takuto corrected them, saying that bad people could do whatever they wanted. He claimed that they were selfish and totally free, so they could do good things and bad things as they wanted. He said that since he was a bad guy, he could forgive them even if they made mistakes, and that suddenly made him realize that the girls were messing up on purpose so that he would punish them. He asked them to confirm his theory, and they did so. Takuto realized that the girls felt guilty about surviving when their mother couldn't, and he calmly approached them. He asked them what their mother had told them before dying, and Marina replied that she had told them to keep on living. Takuto told them that their mother's love was what had kept them alive to see this day, and they should live a life that she would be proud of. He patted their heads, telling them that they were free to live as they pleased, and he would bless them as long as they could live a happy and meaningful life. The girls hugged him and started crying upon hearing this, and when Atu came to the room later, she found them sleeping on Takuto's throne. She was jealous that they had gotten close to him, but then remembered the report she was here to make. They went to another room where Atu told him about the neutral nation called Fornhaven on their east where humans and beasts could live together. The town that was closer to the forest was called Dragon, and it was a part of the nation as well, and it was ruled by a council of shamans. Takuto thought they could start a diplomatic relationship with Dragon first, but he was curious about why the town was built so far away from the main kingdom. Atu told him the rumors about the town being built around a dragon vein, which was the best source of natural mana. She believed that the town was an outpost just to farm mana, but currently it was being attacked by goblins and other monsters without any hope of reinforcements from the kingdom. Takuto thought that this was their chance because if the town fell to monsters, there would be a lot of refugees and they could add them to their population and then use them as a base to negotiate directly with the foreign kingdom. Takuto immediately sent a group of ambassadors to Dragon led by Atu, and they met the bison shaman Tonka and some other beastmen. Atu and others radiated pure evil aura, and the beastmen started to panic upon seeing that. Tonka told them not to attack these people in a state of panic because she was sure that they couldn't beat them. Meanwhile, Atu told the Dark Elves to stand by because she wanted to talk to the beastmen alone. Tonka panicked even more at this because her beastmen subordinates were being forced by their instincts to either run or flee. Atu started releasing her tentacles to threaten the beastmen. But just then, an idiot human stepped in and diffused the tense situation. He cheerfully introduced himself as Pepe and asked Atu to introduce herself as well. Atu was so taken aback by his attitude that she immediately retracted her tentacles, but now Tonka feared that this was going to get them all killed. Luckily, Pepe had saved everyone's asses by initiating a conversation. It turned out that the people from Dragon also wanted to meet King Takuto, and Tonka was leading a delegation. Atu told her that they were doing the same, and that was why they had bumped into each other on the way. Atu led them inside the forest, and Pepe began talking about their adventures on the way here. Tonka apologized for the idiot's behalf, and Atu told her that it was all right even though she was annoyed by him. She then asked Tonka why she had not brought her soldiers along with her, and the bison lady replied that they wouldn't be able to handle the dark air of the forest anyway. She was curious to meet the king that a powerful monster like Atu served. But when she came face to face with Takuto, she couldn't even start to comprehend his true abilities. She began to fear that they might be in danger, and Pepe might be in the most danger because of his stupid personality. Earlier when they were leaving Dragon, they had run into a powerful troll, and Pepe had decided to show off his skills by fighting it alone. He had managed to subdue the troll and climbed on it. But then the troll had gotten up and attacked him again. Pepe had frozen because of panic, but Tonka had come there just in time to save his life. She had lectured him about being careless and then told him that as a punishment, he had to come with her to the cursed forest because they needed to investigate if that was the source of the monsters attacking their city lately. Now she regretted her decision and thought that she shouldn't have brought a child in front of the personification of evil. But Pepe was Pepe, and he confidently introduced himself to Takuto, asking him to become his friend. Tonka panicked and shut the moron's mouth, apologizing on his behalf. But Takuto was happy because this was the first time someone had asked him to be his friend in this world. He agreed to become Pepe's friend, much to Tonka's surprise. And Atu took a moment to process the situation before congratulating Takuto on his first friend. The Dark Elves also started clapping for him, and Tonka was utterly confused about what was going on here. After that, a welcome dinner was laid out in front of the guests, and Tonka was blown away by the taste of apple juice and the transparent glass utensils. Pepe also liked it, and he asked for a refill, and then he immediately jumped over the table to stare at Gia's muscles, and then showed off his magic in front of Molter. Takuto was truly impressed by this god of extroverts, but he didn't know how to go on ahead from here. He didn't want to get distracted by his newly formed friendship because they were going to have important diplomatic discussions. But he also wanted to show the Beastmen that he was friendly so that they could trust him. Suddenly, he got an idea, and he asked Pepe if he would like to play a game with him. Everyone watched him with confusion, but Pepe was glad to accept the offer. They played a variety of games, and Pepe beat Takuto in every single one of them, much to Tonka's dismay. He then told Takuto that these new games were fun and he should sell them to their country. Tonka panicked upon hearing this, but Takuto gladly agreed because he had been planning to do business with them anyway. He thanked Pepe for bringing that up, but then realized that the time for games was over because now he needed to have a serious diplomatic discussion with the Beastmen. Once the lunch was over, Takuto signaled to Atu to start the discussion, and she immediately asked Tonka the reason she had led a delegation here. Tonka flinched as the real topic was finally brought up, and she revealed that recently evil alignment barbarians like trolls and goblins had been attacking their city. She said that they had come here to investigate the cause of those attacks, and Takuto immediately asked if they were lacking in military strength. Tonka panicked at this because if Takuto found out their weakness, he could use it against them in a negotiation. She immediately said that they were able to drive them off without any problems for now. And since they had sent 2 of their strongest shamans out on a mission to investigate things, it showed that they were confident in their strength. Tonka said that they just didn't want to take risks, and Atu agreed with her because barbarians usually avoided civilizations. Everyone believed her words, but then Pepe spoke up. He said that he had been told that the investigation mission was to find the source of the barbarians. Otherwise, their city would be destroyed, and Tonka was so dumbfounded that she couldn't even scold him. Anyway, Atu assured her that they didn't have any hostility towards Dragon or their kingdom, and they were just trying to develop their own nation in peace. She then said that the problem of barbarians concerned them as well, because once they destroyed Dragon, they would attack them. Tonka got hopeful that she could get some help, and Takuto affirmed that he wanted to help his friends. Tonka asked him what he wanted in return because she knew that she could no longer bargain with him on an equal footing because of Pepe. Atu replied that they wanted the dragon vein in the city, and Tonka panicked because she had never even mentioned that. She remarked that Atu had done her research, and she affirmed saying that they would be happy with joint control of the dragon vein because currently they didn't need all the mana it produced. However, she wanted Minogra to have the right to decide which element the mana would be converted into. Tonka was surprised to hear that because they had not reached that level of technology yet, and she assumed that Minogra was already more advanced than them. She wondered if she should take the deal, but then she decided to tell Takuto and Atu about Pepe. She said that he was an even greater fool than some of the most clueless characters imaginable. But he was talented and also the best judge of character among all shamans. That was why she wanted him to decide if they should take this deal. And Pepe told her that he had wanted to be friends with the people of this country from the beginning. With this, an alliance between Minogra and the foreign kingdom was formed. A few days later, Takuto called a meeting to discuss the details of the negotiations that had already ended. Emily said that they would be exporting food and toys to the foreign kingdom, or more particularly to Dragon, and in exchange they would provide them with metal and other daily necessities. Also, in exchange for fighting off the barbarians, they would have joint control over the Dragon Vein. Molter thanked Pepe's carelessness for that, but he was also worried about the boy. Takuto thought the same, but deep inside his heart, he felt that Pepe knew the negotiations would take a long time if he didn't reveal the desperate situation they were in. So, he had revealed the truth on purpose to get help quickly. Anyway, they resumed the discussion and Karina and Marina asked about the foreign kingdom because they knew nothing about it. Molter agreed with them, saying that they needed to learn about the customs and rules of the country they were allied with. And Takuto didn't have any idea about that, because that wasn't really a feature of the game. He said that they would deal with that later because right now their focus was to help Dragon. He said they would send a delegation to the capital of Forn later because it was too far away, and Molter asked what official reason they should use for it. Marina said that they would go there to play because that was what Pepe had said, and Takuto liked the idea of sending a small group to pay his respects before sending a formal delegation. Molter volunteered to lead the small group, but Takuto thought he was too important for that. Gia agreed, saying that Molter was just an old man to them, but to other countries he would be like the Minister of Magic. Molter agreed with him and said that everyone here was too important in that case, and the only right candidates were the twins. However, Takuto thought that it was too dangerous to send them. But Molter insisted that since he was grooming them for leadership roles in the future anyway, he should let them get some experience. Takuto wasn't convinced, so Atu volunteered to go with the girls to ensure their safety. Molter told her that she was the closest person to the king, so she would be an even bigger deal to the foreign kingdom. Atu immediately folded upon hearing this, and now just the twins were left. They approached Takuto, reminding him that he had told them they were free and now they wanted to use the freedom to represent him in another country. He told them that it was risky, but they were willing to take the risk. They tried to pressure him with innocent puppy eyes, and Takuto gave in, which was a shock to Atu, because until now only she could do that. She acted all jealous and sulky later on, and told Takuto to forget about her and build his harem already. He didn't know how to console her, but then the twins told him to express his true feelings to her. Takuto followed their advice and took Atu's hand, thanking her for always thinking about him and saying that he wouldn't have made it this far without her. He told her that she was the only one for him, and her mind was blown. She imagined a happy married life with him, and Takuto was just glad that the matter got resolved. After that, Takuto took Atu and the twins to the newly built clinic because their bodyguards for the upcoming trip were there. Atu was surprised to hear this, and Takuto told her about the plague doctor units that he had recently created. Takuto opened the clinic door and led his group inside, and the plague doctors immediately came out to welcome him. While Marina was struck by the strange-looking people, Karina was a bit scared. However, contrary to their appearance, the doctors had a really cheerful personality, and they emoted a bit to welcome their mighty and wise king. Atu, the biggest fan of Takuto, was impressed by their dedication, and she said they were qualified to serve as his underlings. Takuto told her that he had already created them in case any medical emergencies arose, but they had been on standby this entire time. He said that they would be the perfect bodyguards for the twins, and Atu agreed with him. The twins, on the other hand, were still confused about these strange masked men, and Takuto told them that they were medics who could treat diseases, and they were also decent when it came to combat. Atu then explained to the medics their mission to protect the twins as they observed the culture of Dragon. They got excited upon receiving this mission, but the girls found them too loud and annoying. Anyway, the medics declared that they would act as humanly as possible to carry out this mission, and pleased by their dedication, Takuto decided to reward them with names. He named them Akiro, Yiro, and Saburo, and the medics were overwhelmed with emotions. Takuto thought that since the units produced in this world had individual personalities, it made sense to give them names. However, He felt that he might have been a bit too generous as he saw the medics getting carried away and Marina acting like she was one of them. Karina, on the other hand, was too timid to approach them, and the two could understand how she felt. On the other hand, the mayor of Dragon was throwing a tantrum because she was too busy with work. The elf woman named Antic had thought that she could live an easy life if she left her country and came to a neutral territory. But there was too much work here, and she didn't even have time to find a boyfriend. She was even more pissed at the fact that she had to work with the forces of evil to protect her city. But as she was throwing a tantrum, her subordinate came there. Antic immediately put on her business personality and asked her what she needed. The woman told her that some people wanted to meet her without an appointment, and Antic told her to send them away because her time was more valuable than gold. However, when the woman told her that the unexpected guests were from Minogra, she panicked and decided to drop all her work to meet them. As she went to the waiting room, she found the twins sitting on the couch while the three menacing medics stood behind them. Antic was creeped out by the evil aura the medics released, and she wondered if the shamans had gone crazy to ally with people like them. Anyway, she welcomed the girls who introduced themselves as representatives of Minogra. Antic was on guard against them because she had heard stories about dark elf assassins, and she found the medics even more sketchy. Karina noticed that she looked uneasy, but before she could talk about it, Antic apologized for not being ready to welcome them. Karina and Marina told her that it was no big deal, and then Antic began thinking, why would someone send two kids here? She suddenly remembered that Tonka had talked about two twin sisters who were being raised by the Dark King as future leaders, and she panicked realizing that she was dealing with some really important people. She realized that if she messed up anything here, it could create problems for her country. She nervously asked the twins about the reason for their visit, but they couldn't come up with an answer. Yiro stepped forward to answer the question instead, and he told Antic that they were here because Pepe had invited them to come and play. He assured her that this was an informal visit where they wanted to learn more about the culture and lifestyle of their allied nation, and there was no need for any official discussion as the girls weren't ready for it yet. Antic couldn't be happier to hear that, because now she didn't have to bother negotiating with the girls. She decided to have a good relationship with them for the sake of everyone's future and volunteered to show them around the city. The twins were happy to accept her offer, and Antic spent the day showing them around the city, and Takuto saw it all through the eyes of the medics. After they were done exploring the city, the girls headed to their lodging in the evening. Karina started a discussion about what they had observed today, and Marina said that she had noticed a feeling of anxiety in the people. They were scared of the enemies outside while struggling with food issues. And Marina could understand because she was sensitive to the emotions of others. The medics were impressed to hear about this, and they presented something they had found in the market. As Marina opened the pouch they gave her, she found a white flower. Karina recognized it as the poppy flower that was used as a narcotic, and it had been banned from almost the entire continent. She thought that the flower looked too healthy to be wild and judged that someone was trying to sell drugs in Dragon to take advantage of the anxious people. Karina got mad as she thought about how someone was trying to ruin the peace while Antic was working hard to protect the city, and the medics decided to be more cautious from now on. The next day, Karina and Marina visited the Dragon Vein field, which had a lot of crystals full of mana. The girls were taken aback by the sight. But as they were admiring the crystals, a merchant named Vesta approached them. He told the twins that he had heard about the Dragon Vein being jointly controlled by Dragon and Minogra now. So he had a business proposition for them. He told them that the poppy grass grew well in this mana-rich place, and he wanted to cultivate it because it fetched a high price. He offered to give a share of that profit to Minogra along with other gifts for their king, and the twins asked him more about it. Vesta told them that they would talk about the rest of the things in private and gave them the address where they could find him later. He was pleased that the people with evil alignment were so easy to do business with. But the twins were pissed upon learning that he was the person trying to ruin the city. They didn't visit him and instead went to meet Antic again as their trip came to an end. She was happy that they had enjoyed their stay in the city and asked them to present her as a smart and capable mayor to the king. Just then, Vesta came there with his lackey, and Antic panicked upon seeing him. She asked who the hell had given him the permission to enter here, but he replied that they had entered through brute force. Vesta then asked the girls about their response to his previous offer because they hadn't come to meet him. Antic lost her mind as she thought that the evil aligned twins had made a deal with scum like Vesta. but Karina assured her that they didn't intend to associate with him at all. She told Vesta that he should have been smart enough to know they weren't going to work with him when they didn't show up. She then asked Antic if it was fine if they dealt with Vesta because they wouldn't do it if it caused problems between their countries. Antic was more than happy to let them handle the crooked merchant and his goons, and the medics immediately stepped in between them and the twins. Seeing that they intended to fight, Vesta pulled out a syringe full of poppy extract and told the girls that a single dose of this thing would make them addicted. They reminded him that if he did anything to them, he would be turning the entire nation of Minogra into his enemy, and their king wouldn't let him die peacefully. Vesta said that it would be fine because after this injection, the girls would do whatever he wanted, and then their king would also follow his orders. Vesta then handed over the injection to his men while he stepped aside. But then suddenly his goon's sword came flying right towards him. He panicked at this and turned around, and the sight in front of his eyes was even more horrifying. Meanwhile, in Minogra, Emily was reporting to Takuto when she asked him why he had sent the medics as bodyguards when they could dispatch their warriors. Takuto told her that the medics really loved humans and demi-humans, and because of that, they got extra buffs when they were dealing with them, no matter if they were healing them or fighting them. Back in Antic's office, the plague doctors had butchered Vesta's henchmen and skinned them. They had removed their disguises as well, revealing that they were patchwork monsters who weren't humans, but they wanted to be human by wearing their skin. Antic was horrified at this sight, and Marina comforted her, while Karina ordered the medics to finish off Vesta because he had threatened to harm them and insulted their king. Vesta told them to stop because they were evil people just like him. But Karina told him that being evil meant being free to do anything they wanted, and she wanted him dead. On her command, the medics made quick work of Vesta, and now all three of them had human skins to wear. While Marina told them that they looked human now, Karina apologized to Antic for traumatizing her and making a mess of her office. She began wondering how they would cover the cleaning bills, but Antic nervously told her that it was fine. Karina was happy to hear that, but Antic was even more terrified now that she knew that the twins weren't even a little taken aback at this gruesome scene. She wet herself in fear, and upon seeing this, the medics also decided to do the same because that would be a human thing to do. However, Karina drop-kicked them as she told them to stop, and something inside Antic's mind snapped as she started laughing. Soon after that, the twins returned to Minogra and reported what they had found. But Atu got furious as she realized what they had done in Dragon. Instead of scolding the girls, she took out all her anger on Takuto because he was the one who had let them go that far. She knew that he had ditched his work so that he could watch over them. And despite that, he had let them butcher the bandits in Antic's office. Takuto said that he hadn't stopped the girls because he thought they would hate him, and she yelled at him even more, asking if he was the dad of some teenagers. After that, Atu turned to the twins who were still carrying their bloody cloaks with them and lashed at them for taking such violent actions. Next, she moved on to the medics, but they were actually proud that they had killed 3 people and worn their skin to become more human. Atu lost her cool at this, and as a punishment, she told everyone to write an essay reflecting on the mistakes they had made, which was a pretty mild punishment for killing 3 people in another country. After that, a meeting was called to discuss how they would approach Dragon, but Takuto was too busy handing out candy to the twins. Atu scolded them once again, but the Dark Elves told her to calm down because they needed to get through the meeting first. Molter said that the elves were also partially at fault for not teaching the twins basic manners, and Atu decided to deal with them later. As the meeting started, Molter asked the twins if their report was accurate, and they were confident that they had gotten all the observations correct. The elves read that Dragon was in a lot of trouble. Food was scarce, and there weren't enough guards to patrol the city, so crime was rising. However, the biggest problem remained the attacks of barbarians that involved goblins, orcs, and hill giants. While goblins and orcs were just low-level monsters, hill giants were quite powerful and tough to defeat. Molter said that the soldiers and shamans of Dragon had been unable to find the exact source from where the monsters were spawning, and he thought it was because they were too exhausted to use their sharp senses fully. Gia said that they should immediately send an army to help Dragon before it fell to the monsters. But Emily thought that sending their workers to fight in a war could cause problems for their economy. Atu told them that she was going to take part in the expedition, so they should arrange the rest of the troops accordingly. She said that even though the monsters they were facing were low level, She should be able to get some useful skills from them, and that would make their country stronger. Takuto agreed with the idea, and then Molter suggested that he would also go along with her because he could help in fighting as well as in diplomatic matters. He decided to take some of his students along to assist him, and Gia said that there was no need for him and the warriors to leave Minogra in that case. However, Emily wasn't sure if he was strong enough to protect the country since Atu was their main damage dealer. Atu agreed with her, but then turned to Takuto for the answer, who told everyone that he was going to summon a hero soon, so they didn't need to worry about the defenses anymore. The elves were really surprised to hear this, and they said that the timing was so perfect that it seemed that Takuto had seen the future. Takuto wanted to tell them that it was just a coincidence, but in the end, he decided to just enjoy the praise. Soon after that, it was time to summon the hero, and all the resources for the summoning were gathered at the altar. Everyone was eager to see the summoning, and Takuto was the most excited one because it reminded him of the days he used to save up materials to summon heroes in the game. Before the summoning, Takuto talked with Atu through telepathy, asking what she thought would happen when they summoned Isla. She wasn't sure about it because this was the first hero they were summoning, and she hoped that Isla was obedient to Takuto. However, in case she was hostile, Atu was ready to risk her life to protect her king. Takuto thanked her for always being there with him, but asked her not to risk her life because he couldn't summon her again if she died. With that, he began the summoning ritual, creating a sphere of dark mana that devoured all the resources and then transformed into an egg. As the egg cracked, Isla, the queen of insects, emerged from it. Takuto eagerly watched her, and as Isla screamed loudly, he flinched. Luckily, she was completely devoted to him, and she bowed before him to thank him for bringing her into this world. He was glad to see her too and asked if she remembered him. Isla told him that she obviously remembered him because her memories from the game were intact. But then Atu stepped between them to verify something. She asked Isla if she was really loyal to Takuto, and the insect queen began petting her head as she said that she couldn't be loyal to someone other than her king. Atu got flustered by this and asked her to stop. But Isla was more interested in learning about their current situation. Takuto took her to the palace where he told her that he had been summoned to this world with Atu, and it was thanks to her that they had made it so far. Atu was really flattered upon hearing this, and the two of them started flirting. Isla told them to get a room before she told Takuto that she would take up the role of protecting their kingdom as he had ordered her to, and the one going to help Dragon would be Atu. Atu was already feeling lonely because she was going to be far away from Takuto, and he said that he didn't know if he could function properly without her support. Meanwhile, Isla just watched over them and shipped them together like an old granny. The next day, Atu got ready to depart for Dragon along with Molter and his students. She bid an emotional goodbye to Takuto, and once she was gone, Isla said that she should also start working. Her first task was to become Takuto's temporary secretary, and unlike Atu, she was quite strict. She told Takuto that he couldn't be sleeping until noon because he was the king and his people looked up to him. Marina and Karina were surprised by the difference between Atu and Isla, but they vibed with both of them, so it was cool. After that, Isla asked Takuto's permission to take the twins along with her so that they could give her a tour of their facilities. Takuto gave her the permission, and just as Isla and the twins left, Emily came there with her report on labor reassignments. Takuto got nervous as he received the report because it was his first time dealing with the elves without Atu around. He somehow managed to talk to Emily properly and give her suggestions to make the distribution of their workers more efficient, but that left him exhausted. However, his work wasn't over yet, and Gia immediately came there with his report. On the other hand, the twins were giving Isla a tour of their town when Emily came there. She seemed to be in a hurry, but as soon as she saw Isla, she started complaining about Gia, who broke the training equipment every time and put a heavy burden on her. She rested against Isla's arthropod chest as she cried about how much work she had to do since Molter had gone away, and Isla gently comforted her, saying that she would scold Gia later. A few minutes later, they went to the training ground where everyone was training normally. But just as Gia entered there, he broke everyone's training sword with a swift move. He told them to get better because they couldn't protect the country like this. But then Isla towered over him, telling him that they needed to check their supplies before that. Gia was intimidated and apologized for getting carried away. And Universal Mommy Isla started giving him head pats as she told him that he would become a better warrior if he became calm and mature. Just then, she heard an alarm and the twins told her that it was time for lunch. They took her along to the community kitchen where everyone ate and the elves had taken out premium utensils for Isla. However, she sat down with the rest of the elves to eat. Everyone thought that she was their superior, so she should be treated better. But Isla told them that she was a guardian hero and she could only protect the people of Minogra if she lived with them and understood them. Just then, the twins came there with some custom-made wooden cutlery for her, and Isla gladly accepted their gift. She hugged the girls and gave them head pats that they had been secretly craving all this time. Later at night, she patrolled the town while planning how to improve its defenses. When she heard someone crying, she immediately checked out the treehouse to find that it was Karina who was sobbing and Marina was trying to console her. Isla asked them what had happened, and Karina said that she couldn't sleep because she kept having dreams of the happier times when their mom was alive. When she woke up, she realized those dreams could never come true again, and she started crying every time. The twins told her that they were slowly getting over it, and Isla didn't need to worry about them, but she had a better idea. She hugged the girls, telling them that she would sleep with them from now on, so that when they woke up, they had her by their side. The next day, Isla visited Takuto with her report. She suggested that they build a school next because it would help with improving their research speed and also for promoting their units. She also suggested planting a grass called the living reed at the borders, which served as a wall and dealt damage to anyone who tried to enter by force. Next, she decided to lay some eggs that would give birth to worker insects, and Takuto was pleased by all those ideas. Isla then asked him about it too, and he used his shared sensibility to find that she was just about to fight a group of monsters. The monsters rushed towards the city wall, but Atu sent her tentacles to end their lives in a flash. Mayor Antic was with her too, and she was absolutely horrified upon seeing Atu's power. She began stammering as she told Atu about her good relation with the twins, hoping that it would make the monstrous woman see her in a more positive light. Atu understood what had got Antic so frightened, so she asked her to take a break, and Antic immediately excused herself. After a while, Atu took a break from monster hunting, and one beast man offered her some juice. Molter remarked that she had started to fit in nicely with the people here. Initially, he had thought that everyone would be really scared of her, but thanks to Pepe, that did not happen. Atu got pissed as she heard Pepe's name, because when he had seen her tentacles earlier, he had called her an octopus. Atu had been annoyed when everyone started calling her an octopus, but before she could lash out at Pepe, he had told her to protect the city while he went to the main kingdom to report the matter. Even now, Atu could only sulk about that. But then Molter asked her about the skill harvest. She told him that she had gathered a lot of useful skills from the monsters, and Molter said that Takuto would be pleased to hear that. Atu got excited upon hearing that, and said that she wanted him to praise her a lot, when suddenly she sensed another monster coming towards them. This time it was a hill giant, and Molter checked for any magic that was controlling it. He couldn't find anything abnormal with the mana of the hill giant, and Atu said that they needed to figure out the source of this problem quickly if they wanted to return to their kingdom. Just then, Antic came there running to inform them about the hill giant. She said that their soldiers were getting ready to fight it, but Atu told her to relax because she could deal with one hill giant on her own. She rushed ahead, and then Molter decided to assist her because he didn't like sitting idly. He used a military-grade magic spell called Land of Ruin, giving Atu terrain advantage while greatly debuffing the hill giant. Atu used the holy sword skills to cut through the hill giant in one slash. But then something really surprising happened. The monster's body vanished, leaving behind gold coins instead. Atu immediately contacted Takuto about this strange occurrence. She said that even Molter had not seen or heard about anything like this, and neither could he identify the coins. Takuto linked his vision with Atu to see the coins, and he recalled that they were from another game he had played that was called Brave Quest. Just then a huge army of monsters began approaching the city, commanded by a rock giant and a malnourished warrior who had given up his blades in exchange for magic. Takuto could see that too, and he told Atu to be careful because this time they were facing enemies from an RPG. At the same time, far in the north, Saint Selena was leading a group of knights to hunt the witch named Irikino. As they reached a destroyed village, Selena began looking for the signs of the witch, when suddenly her men were hit by simultaneous headshots, dying on the spot. As she wondered what was going on, Irakino came there and proudly declared that she was going to win this time. Selena was disgusted to see her because she had killed Irakino 17 times already, and she had always come back to life, creating more trouble for her and the kingdom. She didn't understand how the witch could always return to life, and Irakino said that she couldn't understand how the saint could easily kill her each time. Irakino tried stalling the saint, but she figured out that she was planning something, forcing her to reveal her hand. Irakino summoned her army of zombies to attack Selena, but she used her power to summon holy flames, burning away the zombies. Irakino panicked because she realized she couldn't win against the saint this time as well. Selena dashed towards her, piercing her with her staff, and Irakino cursed the game for being too hard to beat. She died with that, but Selena wondered how long it would be until she had to face this crazy witch again. On the other hand, Takuto told the two more about the RPG named Brave Quest, in which their goal was to take down the Demon King. The monsters in that game spawned randomly and attacked without warning, and he thought that was why they couldn't find the source of monsters attacking Dragon. He said that it made sense that there were units from different games in this world if they were here, because they already knew about witches that weren't present in their game. Isla said that since Takuto had played Brave Quest, they had the advantage of knowing about their enemy. He agreed and decided to share the details about the enemy and the winning strategy with the two. Meanwhile, the two demon generals got orders from the Demon King to use any means necessary to conquer the world. Ice Rock said that they were fortunate that even when they came to this new world, small monsters like goblins and orcs still gathered under the flag of the Demon King. The knockoff general, also known as Flamin, agreed with him. And then Ice Rock ordered the monsters to destroy the city and spread suffering among the citizens in the name of the Demon Lord. With that, the monsters charged towards the city, and Ice Rock decided to join them. Flamin told him that he would sit back for now, but he had another goal in his mind. However, as the monsters reached close to the city, Molter cast the military magic spell, Land of Ruin, over a wide area. The monsters began to suffer because of that. But high-level demons like Ice Rock and his magician assistant became even more powerful. They wondered what this weird spell was, and the magician said that maybe it was the work of the chosen hero. Ice Rock got furious at him for saying that because they didn't use the H word. Suddenly, Atu stabbed the magician with a surprise attack, and then boldly approached Ice Rock, identifying him from the details that Takuto had told her. Ice Rock asked her who the hell she was, and Atu introduced herself as a character from the game called Eternal Nations and declared that she would kill every last one of her enemies. At the same time, the residents of Dragon were trying to hold the monster army back by shooting arrows at them, but that didn't do any damage. Antic told the soldiers to keep shooting the enemies to stall them, and she planned to use the time they bought to evacuate the residents. She decided to abandon the city, but Molter told her that there was no need for that because they would win. Antic had decided not to trust anyone who said something like that. But Molter pointed towards the explosions on the battlefield. He said that Atu was already fighting the enemy leader, and once she took him down, the entire monster army would be easy to defeat. Meanwhile, in the battlefield, Ice Rock sent ice spikes to hit Atu, but she dodged everything as she charged towards him. She failed to hit him with a holy sword, but managed to take down a good number of monsters around her. This was all thanks to Takuto's advice, who had told her to use wide area skills. In Brave Quest, both heroes and villains had small range skills for one-on-one battles. But in Eternal Nations, they fought as armies and had much bigger range skills, which gave them a huge advantage. Ice Rock asked Atu why she was standing against them when she was a demon herself. He asked her to join the Demon Lord's army and conquer the world, but she refused, saying that she was too busy running just a small kingdom, so she couldn't handle the stress of the entire world. Ice Rock didn't even understand what she was saying, and Atu realized that he was just a mid-level boss in a small RPG game that existed only to be defeated. Ice Rock didn't even know what RPG meant, but Atu said that he must remember being defeated by the hero over and over again. This sentence hurt the fragile heart of the giant demon, and he began attacking Atu in rage. She easily blocked everything and taunted him further, and Ice Rock unleashed his ultimate attack on her. Atu thought that she could easily dodge his slow attack, but then she found that her legs were frozen as a side effect of the enemy attack. She tried to block the ultimate skill, but ended up getting hit. A black sludge flowed out from her injured shoulder, but that wasn't enough to kill her. Atu immediately stabbed the demon with her tentacles, killing it on the spot and turning it into a bunch of coins. However, she wasn't proud of her victory, but ashamed that she had gotten injured. Her injuries healed immediately though, but she threw a tantrum, saying that she shouldn't have been hit by that stupid and slow attack. Just then, her system told her that she had acquired the ultimate skill of Ice Rock that never missed. Atu finally realized why she had gotten frozen, and she understood what it was like to fight enemies from different game genres. Anyway, she was pleased that the battle was over and contacted Takuto to inform him of her victory. But then she got the shocking news that the other half of the monster army, led by General Flamin, had reached Minogra already. A dark elf soldier immediately ran to Takuto's office to report that the enemies had entered their territory, but Takuto told him to calm down because he knew everything that happened in his domain. Isla also told the soldier to calm down because they had the situation under control and Gia and other important officials were already on the move. The soldier immediately returned to his post, and the twins asked Takuto if they were in trouble. He told them that they would be fine as long as he and Isla were here, but he felt a little anxious about it. Isla said that she hadn't expected the enemies to attack their kingdom either, and she asked Takuto what they should do now because the Demon Lord might be a player just like him. Takuto replied that it didn't matter if the Demon Lord was a player or not, because he had made a mistake by attacking their kingdom, and now they were going to crush him. With that, they departed for the battlefield, and Takuto began counting their forces. Their main combat unit was Isla, and then there were the elf soldiers under Gia's leadership. The medics also had decent fighting ability on top of their healing abilities. And finally, they had the larvae that Isla had given birth to. Isla said that she had bred those larvae just for labor, but with her buffing them up, they could perform decently in combat. Just then, Takuto got a message from Emily telling him that she had evacuated all the non-combatants. Shortly after that, he got another message, this time from Gia, who told him that they had found that the enemies had around 1,000 soldiers, including goblins and orcs. There were also some strange creatures he had never seen before. And Takuto told him to keep defending the capital while he finalized his strategy. After that, Takuto thought that there were high chances a demon general was leading the army, and that could be a problem. He quickly came up with a strategy, and Isla thought that he was going to mass-produce fighter units with the mana they had stockpiled to cover the gap between them and the enemy. However, Takuto's real plan was something else. He immediately granted all the excess mana his kingdom had gathered over the past few weeks to Isla, making her level up like crazy so that she could unlock the skills called Predation and Parasitic Eggs. Takuto told Isla to use her skills to annihilate the enemy forces, and she replied that she was honored that he had chosen to entrust the kingdom's defense to her. Takuto said that after watching the battle at Dragon, he had figured out that Isla was the strongest unit on his side that could deal with the enemies. And now that she had leveled up, it should be easy for her. Isla got ready to attack the demon army, but Takuto warned her to watch out for attacks that followed RPG logic. Isla remembered how Atu had been caught off guard and promised to be careful as she flew off to the enemy location. Meanwhile, the elite soldiers of the Demon Lord's army were wondering why they were even here. One of them said that the Demon Lord probably didn't even know that Flamin was leading the troops here. The Flame Knight was shocked to hear this, and the Demon Wizard told him that Flamin was probably trying to betray the Demon Lord. As he started telling him the spicy gossip he had heard, they spotted someone approaching them, but it was just an ogre they had sent to scout the region. However, the ogre had weird bumps all over his body, and he looked like he was in a lot of pain. The elite warriors were on their guard, and they told him to stay back. But then suddenly the bumps on the ogre's body exploded, and small larvae shot out of it towards the demons. The demons had a hard time dealing with them, and they decided to retreat when they heard Isla's voice, telling them that she was disappointed in the demon army if they couldn't handle even this much. The demons wondered where the voice was coming from, and then Isla climbed down from a tree ready to pounce on them. She made quick work of all the demons and ate them to increase her power, but she found that they weren't even a good source of protein. Just then the demon general Flamin arrived there, and he was quite surprised to see all his troops defeated. He asked Isla to introduce herself before revealing that he was one of the 4 demon generals, and Isla was happy to hear that because she was looking forward to fighting him. She said that she had known there would be an enemy of very high level leading the army, just like Ice Rocket Dragon. Flamin realized that Ice Rock was already dead, but he wasn't really sad about that. He told Isla that Ice Rock had been the weakest of the 4 generals and also the dumbest, so she shouldn't compare him with that brute. She told him that it didn't matter how strong he was because he would also lose. And Flamin didn't like that statement. The two of them kept taunting each other, but then Flamin said that he would drag Takuto down from his throne. And that was crossing the line for Isla and her cute but creepy larvae. Flamin activated his firepower and charged towards Isla, and Takuto could see the battle in real time because of the shared senses. He found that the only interesting thing on the battlefield right now was the fight between Isla and Flamin. Her larvae were on patrol duty and taking down any enemy that was lost in the forest, while Gia and his soldiers were defending the city border from the enemies that reached them. The medics were also standing by, and everything seemed fine. But Takuto felt like he was missing something. He asked the twins if they noticed something, and they didn't have any idea either. Meanwhile, Flamin and Isla were still fighting, and Isla kept pushing him back with her swift attacks. Flamin called her a monster, and she got offended by that, so she summoned her larvae to jump him. However, the demon just burned through them in a second, and then summoned a bunch of monsters to assist him. Isla called that cheating, but then she asked Flamin if she could get an answer to one question. He immediately shot some fireballs towards her, telling her that they were in the middle of a death battle. Isla deflected all his attacks with the help of her larvae and then stabbed the ground with her stinger, pumping some larvae into the ground. She said that her king wanted to know why the demon lord was even attacking them. And then her larvae dug their way into the bodies of Flamin's minions, eating them from the inside out before darting towards him. He immediately burned them using a wall of fire, and Isla continued her ruthless assault. Flamin dodged everything and said that either her king was hiding the truth from her or he was stupid and didn't know anything himself. He then asked Isla what she thought about herself, and she didn't understand his question. He threw a burning punch at her while telling her to answer the question with the first thing that came to her mind. Isla blocked it and replied that she was the protector hero of Minogra and the servant of King Takuto, and that pissed off Flamin. He suddenly realized that the reason he instinctively hated Isla was because she had chosen to serve her king out of free will, and she was proud to do so. Isla also understood his situation now, and she asked if he was just a puppet that was controlled by the demon lord. Flamin couldn't deny that allegation, and he released his full power, declaring that if he could kill everyone here, he would be free from the demon lord's control. He created a flame pillar that reached the sky and sent it after Isla. She tried to dodge it, but the flame attack followed her around until it hit her. Flamin rejoiced that he had won the fight, but he was shocked to see that Isla had protected herself by wrapping her body in a cocoon. She taunted the demon, asking if this was all he had got, and he shot swords made of flame towards her. Isla dodged everything, and then Flamin suddenly ran out of mana. After spamming all those attacks, Isla dealt damage to him, and Flamin remembered the demon lord talking about how he would be free if he conquered this world and offered it to some entity. Flamin realized that he had just been acting like his puppet all along, and now he was going to die without obtaining anything. Isla slashed his body into two, and Takuto immediately called her to congratulate her on the victory. He asked her to return to the capital now, and as Isla told him that she had just leveled up after winning the fight, the call abruptly ended. Both Isla and Takuto found that they couldn't communicate with each other, and the next moment, Isla found the twins in front of her. They had no idea how they had reached there because they had been with Takuto just now, and Isla panicked thinking that they were in danger. She ordered her larvae to protect the twins, unaware that Flamin was still alive.
Without warning, the creatures scatter in terror, sensing an overpowering force approaching. Isla attempts to communicate with the Brain Eaters, but receives no response. She tries reaching Takuto as well, but he too remains silent. When Maria and Kua question what's happening, Isla pulls them close protectively. She whispers comforting words, promising their safe escape, lifting them into the air. She flies away swiftly. After traveling some distance, they stop to rest only to discover Flammen's body directly ahead. They've been circling the entire time. Flammen erupts with laughter, taunting Isla that she can no longer kill him. Refusing to accept defeat, Isla raises her mantis claw to strike, but barrier materializes, blocking her attack. Flammen mocks her further, explaining that killing him is impossible now that he's already dead. Takuto receives a system notification, auto-defend activated. He begins connecting the dots, recalling Flammen's activities during the brave quests. On the battlefield, Flammen ridicules Isla's arrogance. Though Maria and Kua tremble with fear, Isla vows to protect them. She launches a relentless assault, but each strike rebounds harmlessly off the barrier as Flammen laughs. Suddenly, a crimson aura envelopes them, against their will. The twins begin walking toward Flammen, their bodies moving involuntarily despite their terrified expressions. Isla struggles desperately to pull them back, but the aura restrains her as well. Flammen smugly explains this is his favorite RPG mechanic, a scripted event that cannot be resisted. The twins continue forward, pleading with Isla to save them. Witnessing their terror, Isla strains against the aura with such force that her body begins bleeding. Flammen dismisses their efforts, calling them delusional fools. He shouts toward Takuto, knowing he's watching, vowing to kill Takuto's most precious citizens as revenge. A massive explosion engulfs everything. The scene shifts to a memory. Maria and Kua climbing a tall tree, reaching the top to witness Managra's breathtaking landscape. As moonlight bathes the civilization in ethereal beauty, they promise each other to bring Isla here next time. That promise shatters instantly. The twins awaken in a crater from the explosion. Relief at being alive turns to horror when they see Isla, her body destroyed from shielding them. With a fading voice, Isla asks if they're okay, managing a weak smile. The twins frankly insist on getting her to Managra, but Takuto doesn't respond to their calls. Isla tells them the harsh truth. She won't survive. They protest desperately, but she insists her injuries are fatal. Maria and Kua break down, blaming themselves for being too weak. They groan comfortable, believing they could finally live peacefully with Isla, whom they come to see as their mother. Why must they face this cruel fate? Isla comforts them, taking responsibility for not being strong enough. When they declare they'd rather die with her, she makes a shocking move, plunging her claw into her chest and extracting her glowing heart. Through tears, she apologizes for leaving them, explaining that fate cannot always be controlled. She gives her final command: eat her heart to inherit the royal succession, skill, and all her power. Her arm falls, and Isla dies peacefully. Meanwhile, ATU battles goblin waves with Molter following behind. She protests his presence, but he explains that Takuto ordered him to assist in destroying the Demon Lord's stronghold. Mid-battle, ATU freezes. Isla's presence has vanished completely. Realizing Isla is dead, ATU explodes in fury, her tentacles tearing through enemies viciously. When Molter asks what's wrong, she tells him Isla has been killed. Takuto feels it too, his face twisted in disbelief. Isla's death shouldn't be possible. He checks his inventory, and the system confirms Isla's presence cannot be detected. The words devastate him, and he falls to his knees. In the crater, Maria and Kua honor Isla's wish, consuming her heart through their tears. A brilliant glow erupts as they inherit her strength. Minutes later, the telepathic link reconnects. Takuto informs ATU about Isla's terrible death. ATU realizes her guilt. She noticed Ice Rock using RPG mechanics, but failed to report it. If she had, Isla might have been more cautious. ATU announces she'll return immediately, but Takuto stops her. Though Isla died, the twins survived and are heading south toward the enemy's stronghold to avenge her. ATU insists they're too weak, but Takuto reveals that Isla used royal succession. Maria and Kua now carried her hero status. He orders ATU to retrieve them immediately, as they cannot afford to lose more hero units. ATU protests that the RPG mechanics are too dangerous, but ultimately obeys, trusting Takuto's judgment as the greatest Eternal Nations player. Meanwhile, Gia and M report they've nearly eliminated the invaders and evacuated non-combatants. But Takuto interrupts, declaring he'll personally issue every order from now on, a departure from his usual trust in commanders. Maria arrives expressionlessly at Lady Wynn's base. The demon general sneers at the child confronting her, but Maria's left eye glows red with unnatural power. When soldiers move against Kua, she unleashes dark energy that freezes them in a trance. Kua bitterly admits she should never have relied on hope or trusted anyone. Lady Wynn panics when Kua effortlessly neutralizes her forces. She hurls a wind attack, but Kua nullifies it. Then Lady Wynn's body begins melting. She collapses, begging for mercy, but Kua watches emotionlessly. Meanwhile, Maria faces the enemy's elite units. She playfully blocks their strongest magic attacks, laughing. When Magitech activates his iron battlesuit, Maria snaps her fingers. The suit shuts down completely. She takes a playful bite of the air, creating razor-sharp slashes that cut through the Earth-Mage squad and Magitech's armor. She strolls to the trembling Magitech and finishes him off. After the massacre, a system message appears. The twins are now marked as third-degree threats, nicknamed the Witches of Regret. The other player, a middle-aged blonde man, wonders how fragile-looking children reach this strength level. He believes fate mocks him and decides to end everything here. Once he sacrifices his world, he'll obtain the freedom promised by his pact with God. He asks if they believe in God. The sisters reveal their glowing red eyes and declare no such thing exists. He quickly creates a barrier, but they shatter it instantly. He's shocked. Only the chosen hero should break that barrier, and according to his divine agreement, no such hero should exist in this world. The twins silently advance. The demon lord mutates into a grotesque beast with countless swords sprouting from his back, launching them confidently. Maria halts every sword midair with an ecstatic smile. Kua forces the beast into ground. Together, they charge with swords, and Kua's single swing destroys his arm and half his body. Despite his ruined state, the demon lord refuses to surrender, driven by his divine pact. The twins laugh, insisting there's no God. Kua warns that believing someone will save you only leads to disappointment. Exactly what they thought about Isla. Suddenly, the demon lord is healed by his god. Before he can give thanks, his body is sliced in half by an unexpected third party. The twins demand to know who interfered. The stranger claims he thought they needed help. Kua warns his help was neither wanted nor necessary. He smugly responds they're too weak to defeat him anyway. The twins leap to attack him for ruining their chance to atone for Isla, but ATU suddenly appears, freezing their feet. She informs them Takuto ordered their immediate return. Their mission is complete. They refuse, saying they have unfinished business. ATU reminds them Takuto's orders aren't optional. The sisters declare they're no longer under his command. Only avenging Isla matters. ATU prepares to discipline them, but they recall Takuto once told them they could do whatever they wanted because they were evil, but also to do what would make their mother happy. Realizing fighting ATU isn't what Isla would want, they apologize and stand down. ATU accepts their apology this time. The interfering man also apologizes before disappearing. ATU notices he wore a school uniform. If he's Utakuto's suspects, it's best to leave him alone for now. The twins ask if Isla can be resurrected. Sadly, ATU says it's impossible. They collapse in grief. ATU reports to Takuto they're returning. He blesses their safe journey. Takuto realizes 4X strategy game mechanics apply to this world too. He thought only cheat skills were at play, but enemies use RPG systems as well. With countless game genres existing, the threat possibilities are endless. Elsewhere, the mysterious man who killed the demon lord collapses exhausted, recalling how terrifying ATU and the twins were. He curses the god who deceived him, claiming 2 beautiful girls needed saving, but they turn out to be monsters. A girl approaches his slave, explaining the god apologized for bringing him here accidentally. He grits his teeth, convinced it was no accident. At least he is a cute slave now. When a massive ogre appears behind him, he destroys it instantly with his god-granted cheat abilities. His slave marvels at his power. Together, they vow to try saving this world. In the town ruins, Irakino has been resurrected for the 19th time. The priest who battled her is dumbfounded. She'd incinerated Irakino to ashes and sealed her with powerful magic. Yet here she stands again. Despite her confusion, the priest steals a resolve to vanquish Irakino, no matter how many times it takes. Suddenly, the priest is struck down in a single blow. Irakino mockingly taunts that dealing with her has been tiresome, then praises a deity she calls the Dice Master. In Managra, Takuto realizes they'll now face massive enemies wielding various mechanics and systems. One more mistake will mean complete annihilation. In frustration, he slams his fist, shattering the floor and falling through. Rising up, he's struck by revelation. The damage came from his overwhelming strength, not a weak floor. Testing this, he punches a tree, which shatters instantly. He realizes he's been an attack unit all along, though he never considered it. This discovery brings regret rather than joy. If he'd realized sooner, perhaps Isla would still be alive. Later, ATU and the others return, and an emergency meeting is called regarding the twins' insubordination. Everyone expects harsh punishment, but Takuto shocks them by announcing no punishment whatsoever. ATU protests that such leniency will lead to chaos, but Takuto insists he should apologize. He bows deeply before everyone. ATU and the Dark Elves are stunned. Never had they imagined their king lowering his head. Takuto makes a bold declaration. Isla will be brought back to life. ATU objects that resurrecting a hero is impossible in their current state, but Takuto refuses to back down. He doesn't care how impossible it sounds. What matters is reviving Isla, restoring happiness, and reuniting loved ones. He recalls promising this during the Ascension victory. If this world follows the Eternal Nation system, they will claim victory and fulfill that promise. ATU strongly protests, warning that an Ascension victory means rewriting the world itself, and the entire world will turn against them. Takuto brushes aside her concern, declaring he doesn't care. He'll personally kill anyone who stands in their way. A dark aura surrounds him, radiating overwhelming pressure. He admits the path will be filled with hardship, but they'll overcome it if everyone follows his orders exactly. That night, while Takuto plans future battles, the Dark Elves hold a small funeral for Isla. The atmosphere is heavy with sorrow. The twins step forward, boldly telling everyone not to be sad since Takuto promised to bring Isla back. But their words do little. Others have lost confidence, quietly wondering if they can keep up with Takuto's reckless ambitions. Hidden in the bushes, Takuto secretly watches. The twins raise their voices again, encouraging everyone not to lose faith, to believe in King Takuto. Their words surprisingly boost morale. None expected encouragement from children. Takuto watches with quiet pride, his heart swelling at their loyalty. The next day, ATU finds Takuto in an emotional breakdown. With the twins consoling him, he confesses he feels terrible about losing control yesterday. Admitting he scared everyone, the twins pat his head reassuringly, suggesting he rephrase his words. Steadying himself, Takuto declares with determination that he'll never let down those who believe in him, and together they'll achieve the Ascension victory. ATU and the others are moved by his sincerity, rallying behind him and vowing to follow to the very end. Takuto lifts his head confidently. In his heart, he knows he'll claim victory. After all, he's the original Eternal Nations player, destined to outlast them all. But that's it for this video. Please subscribe for more.